Alright, what's up everybody? This is Average Aaron again for another auto video that I'm working on my 2003 Dodge Ram 2500 5.7 liter V8. And what I'm going to try to do is do some bondo work today. I've never done it before. It's probably going to turn out kind of poor, but that's why this is Average Aaron's and not Expert Aaron. Maybe I'll get there. But as you can see, here's the hole I'm trying to patch. And it already has some mesh in there. So one of the things I bought was this self-adhesive body patch. And you can use it a couple different ways. And I stuck it in on the other side so they didn't have to hammer in the sheet metal on the outside as much. But you can just cut it, use a tougher pair of scissors, and stick it in on the inside. And honestly, it's just there to start the bondo process. It'll probably fall off or I'll pull it off because once the bondo hardens, it'll adhere to itself and the surrounding metal better than the mesh will to it. The mesh is kind of sticky. And I'll show you how it comes out of the package here. You just get it on a little film like this, and then you can peel the adhesive off and then cut it to the shape and size to fit it. And then what I also have, I'm first going to use is this bondo glass, and you can see the cylinder it comes in. Now I also purchased the hardener cream because I knew I needed to use that for it to harden. But what I didn't realize was that when you take the lid off, it already has some. So fortunately I can return this and get $2 back, maybe a little more. And then after that, I'm going to use the Gold Body, professional Gold Body filler. It's a little bit more of a finer product, and as I can see through the lid a little bit there, it also has some hardening cream in it as well. And the first thing we have to do is mix the bondo and the hardening cream. And so what I've done here is I've got this box coated with wax paper on the top, so it's a non-sticky surface. And I'm going to pour out about a ½ inch tall thing of bondo, about like ½ inch, so it sticks up about like that. And it doesn't matter the circle size that I'm going to pour out here. I'll take a pause to set it here in just a second. But you'll see I'm going to put some of it on there, and then I'm going to take a thin line of the cream hardener and spread it over the top with a putty knife. And so I'll take a quick pause and set this up to show you guys what that looks like. Alright, so I've got it poured out here. It's not a perfect circle, obviously, but you just want to spread a bead around the diameter, and this smells awful. It's like the glue from those kit cars that you built as a kid and the little model toys, and you get that awful smelling glue. It smells about 3 times worse than that. So you want to make sure also that if you want to reuse it, I used a flathead screwdriver to ply out the can. And then I tried to keep it clean in there so I can put it back down without it being too sticky, so I can use it more on a future project if I need it. Once you get it on here, you don't want to mix it like you would a cake. You want to kind of keep it low and just slowly fold it, spread it around low. I should have done a better job of taping this down than I realize it now. And just gather it up and then bring it over because you don't want air bubbles to get in here too much. And so I'm going to spin it around and mix it, and then I'll come back after it's all mixed and show you all what it looks like. Alright, as you can see, it mixes to a lot darker color. I will recommend taping down your wax paper a lot more than I have. I went cheap, and also I ran out of painter's tape here on the side and on this side also. And so I would just recommend taping it down a lot better. That way you're going to hold the surface down when you're doing it. Also, so you see I've got it to a lot darker color, and just for contrast you can see that it's a lot lighter in the can, but once you mix it, you want this darker color here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of this on here, pause to reorient the camera, and then we'll see what it looks like and how to put it on. I've never done this before, so don't expect perfection first time go. Alright, now this first layer of bondo is for strength, so don't worry about it being perfect, and that's what the finer layers are for. We're going to sand it down. So I'm going to put this first layer in here, and it does not go well at all. Crap. So try to get some on the mesh as the starting point, and then hopefully the stickiness will build up as we fill it in over time. And I will get that off the stuff that's falling onto the tire there. I'll get that. So yeah, just kind of press it in and let it sag in. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It's not gonna be. And we're gonna be able to sand this down quite a bit once we get more of it done. Now you got about 15 to 20 minutes before this hardens really good. So you got to work a little fast here. to kind of get it in there. And any gaps and stuff like that too, we'll fill in with some more bondo over the course of time here. And I did not make enough, so I'm gonna have to pause and make more, but I didn't know how much this was gonna take. It's a good learning process, and highly recommend making an experimental batch on your own first before you apply anything here and go to town. And it always hurts, I guess, to have a little too much when you're starting this. And anything extra, again, you can sand it down. But if you have too much, that's all right. You can always sand it down. But if you have too little, you can't fill it in. So we'll take a pause, and I'm going to make some more. And we'll fill it back in here for the mesh and go from there. All right, so as you can see, I've applied the bondo. It's kind of leaked on the tire, so I had to wipe it off with a towel. And I put a towel down so you guys can kind of see that to catch it. It did wipe off fairly easy. I got it before it dried. My friend has started to run it by, and asked him to stop and give me a first impression as to what he thinks this looks like. So what do you think it looks like? Good, bad, ugly, indifferent? What's your thoughts?
Looks like it needs to be sanded.
Absolutely, and once it hardens, it will be sanded. Now, my wife walked out here for a second and said that it looks better than the rust. I think it looks like somebody went to the bathroom on the side of my truck. But we'll get there, and the progress was still going on. So I'm gonna patch up this little bit of space and gaps I have right here, and again, we're gonna sand it down. It'll be smooth, but I'm gonna fill in some gaps there, and I'll come back to you once it's dry. All right, so I filled it in as much as I can. It's actually hardened too much. So when I didn't have a perfect circle, I had more of an oval. The ratio might have been off by a little bit, but I'll let somebody work those math numbers in the comments below, assuming I can figure out how to turn the comments on. So you can see how it's stringing, and you can see what's called like fiber. Bondo glass, it'll be like some fibers here as we sand it down. But I'm gonna let this harden for another 20 minutes. And then I'm gonna come out here and we will sand this down. All right, before we come back to sand, I forgot to mention this. I wanted to show you guys that, so this is already hardened for the most part. And you don't have to worry about cleaning the brush, I'm sorry, the putty knife, because in just a moment it'll be so hard it'll actually come off in one big section, and which makes cleanup relatively nice. And then I'll get a new piece of wax paper out here when we do the next bit of waxing. But right now we're just gonna let the bondo dry, and then we'll sand it down. All right, so I don't want to cut out the whole drying process. I want you guys to see. It's already pretty hard. And like, I'm poking that with my hand, and that is solid. That's really solid. So I'm gonna give it like 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna get my 40 grit sandpaper and a sand block down here, and I'm gonna sand it. All right, so the 20 minutes has elapsed, and I'm gonna start doing some sanding with my 40 grit sandpaper on this little thing I'm using as a sand block. It's not perfect, but it works. And then also one of the things I've done is I've incorporated a fan, so it will blow a lot of the dust. Anytime you sand with bondo, you're gonna have a lot of dust. So I'm using the fan to blow the dust away from me. I've also have a mask and gloves and eye protection on, but this just helps reduce the risk of inhaling any of this, because you don't want it in your lungs, just like you don't want COVID in your lungs or any of that stuff. You just don't put anything in your lungs except air. That's probably good common practice and sound medical advice coming from amateur Aaron. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what this looks like as we begin to sand this process down. Let me turn the fan on real quick. Let me go plug the fan in, and then I'll come back and turn it on. All right, so got the fan and the mask. Show you guys. Got a good grip on this, because this is some bumpy stuff here. You see it just kind of starts chipping away. You can see it's already wearing down. So it's gonna take a lot of work, because there's a lot of bondo on here, but we'll get through it. Come back when it's done. All right, here's my progress after doing this for 5 minutes. A couple notes I would make. One, make sure you really push it in there. And I know I said use extra, but then you gotta sand that down, and that takes a lot of work. So you gotta fix that. So try to use the exact amount, because that's tiring getting this stuff off. Secondly, you'll notice I've damaged some of the paint around it with the 40 grit sandpaper that I was using, and that's okay. I'm gonna use a primer and a filler to do some of this. But as you can see, even if I were to just put paint on this, it would still look better than the rust. Super solid, super impressed. I'm gonna keep sanding this down and we'll come back when I've made a lot more progress. All right, we're back and taking a look at it, and I am pleasantly surprised at the results. Actually quite surprised. So the fan, huge help in keeping that out of your face. Definitely recommend having one of those if you go to ever do this yourself in a well ventilated area. Now, it's still pitted, I got that. But from what exists here is smooth. You can feel it with my own hand. Yes, there are some bumps and ridges that I feel, but there's nothing sharp, nothing too pointy, except right in here, but I'm gonna fill that with the gold stuff. Again, I'm just practicing here, and it's gonna be covered by a fender well anyway. So, I feel gotta do a little bit more sand in here, and then a tiny bit there, and I'm gonna add on some more. Be right back. All right, sanded that smooth, and I was so impressed with my own results, I decided to sand off that little bit that I just painted, covered the rust, and I'm gonna try the gold stuff there. So I'll come back after I've applied the gold stuff. All right, I've applied the professional gold body filler, which is a finer thing, sticks in there. And when I applied the hardener, it hardened really quick. So you gotta get it on there fast and then just let it dry for 15 to 20 minutes. I've brought in my other sidekick, Excellent EO, to also offer her thoughts on this. EO, what do you think?
It looks good.
Does it look better than the hole?
Yeah.
What do you think we should do with it? Leave it or paint it?
Paint it.
Good call. What color should we paint it?
White.
Good call. We'll be back after we sand it. All right, guys, look at that. That is so smooth. You can still feel a little bit of the waves of the body paneling, but if I close my eyes and with a glove on, because you can feel the texture difference, but the surface distance differences, this feels like so smooth. And you got to make sure you watch. You'll always have a little bit of a feeling where the two different substances meet, and so that's where you got to pay careful attention to where you're sanding to make sure you get it smooth there. Now, I still have a couple imperfections. You can clearly see that, and any imperfections you have are going to be highlighted when you paint it. So I'm going to put a glaze in here and fill this in one more time. I'll be right back after I do that. All right, so that's the glazing putty that I put on that fills in anything. It comes in a tube like this. And I probably put it on just a hair too thick. And one of the things I forgot to do on the previous sanding was to remove it with a 320 grit to get a little smaller, finer grained. The smaller the number for sandpaper, the more coarse it is, and then the larger the number, the finer it is. So what I'm going to do to remove this is Chris Fix, I know, recommends a 320. I don't have a 320, but I got a 400 here handy. So I'm going to use this and sand it down and get it all smooth, and I'll show you guys the finished product. All right, so I've sanded down the glazing putty, and one thing I will say about the glazing putty is you definitely want to use less. Now this feels so smooth. I got to put my glove back on, but it feels really smooth. As you transition a lot, as you transition between the surfaces, you can hardly tell. Now, one imperfection I do have here is the metal sticking out right here, just from the bumps that it's sustained over the years and hits that it's taken. And so I should have hammered that in a little bit more before I started the process. But otherwise, the whole piece is smooth and looks really good. So that's the end of how to do bondo. I like the glazing putty as the last step. I'm going to stop this video, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do how to paint. And that'll give this time to fully cure and dry before we come back and do that. So thanks for watching my video. Be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you these Average Aaron's audio videos. Thank you very much. See you. Talk to you later. Bye.